Hi, I'm Kevin Johnston, sales engineer at CBTS, and today we're going to talk about Palo Alto's ADEM product. So ADEM stands for Autonomous Digital Experience Management. It is a tool that we really use to help network administrators and system administrators with a handful of problems that we all deal with today in the modern work world. So when we have users that are working everywhere, whether that's a user that might be working remotely at, say, a coffee shop or at home, or that might be working behind a corporate office, how do we make sure that those users are able to effectively connect to resources that they need, regardless of where they're coming from? So there are three challenges as network administrators, as system administrators that we're faced with in this kind of distributed work world. Is one, how do we identify problems quickly? Two, once we identify those network problems, how do we reduce our either mean time to detection or our mean time to resolution? How long do we how do we try to drive down the amount of time that those issues are impacting our users? So we'll say reduce our mean time to resolution. And number three, how do we make sure that our users, regardless of where they are, whether they're at home, whether they're remote, or whether they're in the office, how are we improving their work efficiency? By making sure they can always effectively access the applications they need to accomplish their work. ADEM is one tool that we use to do this. When we put the ADEM client on an endpoint, it runs a number of health checks that it starts assessing so that and feeds that data back to us as system administrators. So on the machine itself, it looks at things like CPU utilization, it looks like things like memory, to make sure that the device is performing the way that we'd expect. Pretty standard stuff. But additionally, it goes from the device and it starts making tests out to a number of points across the network to make sure the whole, we'll call it a service chain, between the end user and the application is performing the way that we'd like. So for that user that's remote, that might be connecting to public Wi-Fi, it'll run checks across that Wi-Fi network to make sure that we have effective Wi-Fi connection. And it'll report back to the end user if it doesn't, so that they can know to expect a poor Zoom experience, a poor Microsoft Teams experience if they're joining WebEx or video bridges. They'll know and they can start to move to a place where maybe they're closer to an access point, maybe they're at a better location. They say, oh no, I better not join the meeting here. I need to get to a place where I have better network connectivity. It'll run tests across Wi-Fi. It'll run tests to the default gateway of whatever system they're connecting to. So whether that's a modem in their home office, whether that's the modem or whatever router that happens to exist at whatever coffee shop they're working at, and it'll start making these checks across the LAN that they happen to be on to the local gateway. Across the ISP network, it'll continue to check the hops that you may be taking all the way up to where that user finally gets to Prisma access. So we're able to effectively test across the entire service chain on our Wi-Fi networks, on our local networks, across our wide area network, and all the way to the cloud to make sure that we're effectively able to access resources wherever they are, whether that's in our own data center that would transit through Prisma, whether that's a user just accessing web pages, or whether they're accessing infrastructure maybe in our own IS platform. So whether that's AWS, whether that's Microsoft's Azure, or others. Not only are we testing from the end user to Prisma, but even from Prisma, we are testing constantly via that ADEM functionality to these locations to make sure that It's not just client to cloud, but client all the way to the application, that we're able to have an effective chain of delivery of those network services and application services that users have. And all that data gets fed back to us as system administrators to make sure that we can visualize, correlate, and remediate any issues that we may see. So these issues that we're describing here, obviously from this end user's perspective, this isn't my network, right? This user's at a coffee shop, they're on coffee shop Wi-Fi, there's a number of internet service providers that maybe I have no visibility into, but I can see when they're having a negative experience, and that user can be alerted to make sure that they're aware and they can adjust accordingly. Now, when we're talking about my own network, for those users that might be working in my branch offices, especially when you're thinking, I've got users that might have multiple internet links that build tunnels to Prisma. So here's ISP1 and ISP2. Not only can I test from the endpoint using ADEM, but also ADEM can test from the SD-WAN appliance as well from Palo Alto. So it can test the health of this link, it can test the health of this link across the entire chain all the way to Prisma, and can make decisions accordingly to ensure that just the same way that we're testing and alerting our end users if we have remote connectivity issues or remote application connection issues, I can continue to test and monitor that same functionality both from the endpoint as well as from the SD-WAN appliance that connects to Prisma and to those applications when folks are on the corporate office. In this way, as a system admin, as a network admin today, regardless of where somebody's working from, we can make sure that we are providing the most effective connectivity that they can have to the resources that they need to get their job done. Thank you.